Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here, as always, with my good friend, Dan Wiseman. Dan, how you doing, bro?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. Very much looking forward to this one today.
For sure, and it would be rude not to introduce our guest on the channel today, Coach AMC himself, Aaron Clark. How you doing, brother?
I'm very good, my man. Very good. Thank you for having me on. It's good to be here.
Thank you for coming on, mate. Honestly, it's as we were just saying off air, been wanting to get you on for a while, man. But yeah, before we get into this, guys, this is going to be a review of the transfer window, an exciting window, I think, for all Villa fans. There's still a little bit of room for debate, though, which I think there has been plenty of on Twitter. But before we get into all of that, we have a message from today's video sponsor. Dan, have you ever wanted an app that collates all the scores and news from your favourite teams in the whole of Europe, Dan? Have you ever wanted that?
Is a constant need of mine, mate, because there's always news. That's the thing, is that we love this game. We love the industry of football because it's ever changing, mate, and you need a place to keep up with it all.
And we have that place exactly for you guys.
Do,
it's One Football. Guys, this app is genuinely, it's life-changing.
It's great because I use it. So it's great because it's where I pull the stats from for the podcast. So it's like there's all that new stuff as well, but you can track all of the players' stats from like across Europe for all the different leagues, for continental football as well. It's a dream. It's a dream. And the best part, mate, is it's free.
It's free, and guys, it would help support the channel massively if you check that One Football using the link in the description down below. We promise you guys won't be disappointed. So guys, if you haven't checked out One Football, make sure you do so using the top link in the description. They've been really kind to us and they really like how you guys have been engaging with the app. So make sure if you haven't checked it out, check it out with our link in the description down below. Now, it would be rude, lads, not to talk about Felipe Coutinho, especially after the absolute screamer that he scored the other night for Brazil. And I think if anybody had any doubts about this deal before it was done, or even after the short cameos against Manchester United and Everton, I think all that's put to bed now, isn't it, Aaron?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I mean, I never thought we'd see a day where we were signing players like Felipe Coutinho, you know. It just goes to show how far the club's come, where we're at, and actually the start of where we want to be. You know, players like Felipe coming into the club is game-changing. It's industry-changing. You know, he's one of the most expensive players that the world has ever seen, one of the most well-loved, internationally recognised Brazilian players that, you know, I never thought we'd see at Villa. And I'm delighted to have him. His magician-esque-ness, his skill, his presence, his everything he brings, you know, you can recognise very quickly when he's on the field. I mean, he came on against United and the game changed. It did. There's no denying it. You know, whatever it wasn't when Felipe came on. And I think that's a real sign of what we've got to come. He's a beautiful player. You know, you talk about footballers being good, offering the quality. I think Felipe is another level above that good and quality. You know, he is a magician. He is a wonderful, wonderful footballer. And we'll find his name in the tops of realms in 10, 20, 30 years time, you know, as a player that people will never forget. And he's now in Claret and Blue. He's now at Villa Park. And that's insane.
It's surreal, isn't it, Dan? It's mental. Yeah. Like, yeah. Especially when you consider, I think what kind of really did it for me was seeing Neymar like share a photo of Felipe celebrating the other day. It's like Neymar is acutely aware that Aston Villa exists.
Yeah, I think that you never get tired of that, do you, mate? It's crazy. It's crazy. This is like, you know, Aaron said it himself, mate, and said it really well. It's that like he's a player that you will talk about down the years. And I think it's partially because I don't think there are too many players like this nowadays. We're seeing a game transition into one that is based on power and pace and strength. You know, you look at the two guys that are heralded to sort of carry the torch forward for, you know, generational footballers in the years to come. You talk about Erling Haaland, you know, Kylian Mbappe, guys like that. It's all about pace and power and velocity. And, you know, Coutinho and players like that are those archetypal number 10s that you were talking about the other week, Dan, that you don't see. They are there. I'm not saying they don't exist, but ones like Coutinho that operate in those half spaces on the turn, running at back fours, they are becoming a lost art. And so to have one of the true great ones, one of the last of his generation playing claret and blue, and to pick him up in the January window, which I think has been glossed over in all of this for all the world feels like a piece of business you do in the summer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, like, Aaron, I know it is, you know, we've all touched on it there. It's just so surreal, isn't it? And I think I think it's fair to say Villa fans have potentially at times somewhat unrealistic expectations, or at least there is a vocal minority that, you know, that there always seems like whatever we do isn't enough to impress them. It just, this is completely like, almost this has set an entirely new precedent, hasn't it? And, you know, we're seeing some reports today that Gerrard's going to be given a huge transfer kitty in the summer. If this is the kind of player that we can attract in a January window, Aaron, it's crazy to think what could be happening over the next sort of 6 months in terms of scouting and recruitment ahead of the summer.
Yeah, I think what Philippe Coutinho presents is the ball now rolling for extensively quality recruitment. You know, we're not playing games anymore. We're not looking to just bulk up the squad with players that can come in and do a job if they need to. You know, we're looking at players now that are going to be first names on team sheets and improving each department of the team. And I think that's what Philippe does. I mean, Emi Buendia must be absolutely reveling in glitter at the thought of playing with Philippe now. I mean, Argentinians, in my opinion, one of Argentina's most incredible forward players. You know, Emi is a beautiful player. We've seen that. He's really coming to light now in a Villa shirt, you know, really proving why we paid so much money for him. Difficult start for him, but he's settled. Philippe alongside him doing the same thing, but with far more experience, far more knowledge, far more understanding of the Premier League. Mate, it is scintillating to think that those two are now spearheading, you know, our attacking force. And it is a sign of things to come. You know, we have seen in the papers this week, Greg very nicely and Ashley this week have said, you know, that Gerrard is due a big spending spree in the summer. And I don't disbelieve it, mate. I firmly believe, you know, we'll be spending big bucks, and we're not going to be spending 10, 15 million on 5 players. We'll be spending 40, 50 million on 3. And I think that's where we're heading. And I hope Philippe is one of them. You know, I do. I think he'll have a really successful 6-month loan period. And I firmly believe he'll sign permanent, and he will be the start of that process. And it'll be exciting times, boys, like really exciting times. You know, I can't wait to see him starting a game for us, which hopefully won't be too long.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, you know, I think that in any other window as well, it's a shame, really. I think Dean would be the marquee signing, and he's been completely overshadowed by Philippe, which is understandable. But, you know, instantly we've seen Dean's quality in the 2 matches that he's played in so far, which I'm not surprised that. I've been really impressed at, and I hate to sit here and be that guy being like, I told you so, because there were so many Villa fans who were sceptical, and I think, you know, rightfully so in some aspects, Dan. But again, you know, spending the best part of £27 million, not only strengthening our team, but weakening another team in Everton, who, let's be honest, although they're going for a rough patch right now, are a side who you would consider a direct competitor and or rival. It's a genius piece of business, really.
Yeah, man. I think that's the big thing, is that, you know, a lot of people talked about, I think, Chris Wood going from Burnley to Newcastle in a similar light, in that you're weakening a fellow relegation rival. And I think we've done a similar thing, albeit further up the totem pole. I think, you know, as you said, Everton are going through in a bit of a tough spot right now, but I think ultimately we're quite similar clubs. I think we shop in the same supermarket. I think, you know, and I think it's a lot that, you know, players from Everton are looking at Villa as a step up, and I think it's starting to show that we are taking the lead in that department. I mean, it's exciting to see what Stevie can do with a big budget. He seems to me to be a manager with an idea of exactly who he wants to sign. Do you know what I mean? I feel like the recruitment is very much going to be left in his patch. I think, he's someone that will have known with his relationship to Coutinho. I feel like that would have been an idea that he brought to the board rather than the other way around. He said, look, I know Felipe. I know that he's not getting a lot. I think I can do this. It doesn't, that's the way that I think we're going to go. And I'm totally comfortable with it. I think this is why it's starting to vindicate that decision to leave Rangers for Villa, because ultimately you can't do this in the SPL. You don't have that kind of money. And he signed some fantastic players there. And the thing is that you have to look at the players that came in during his reign, and still he's able to operate sensibly with money. It shows that he bought a lot of players for Rangers for very low fees and flipped them into players that are going for a lot more money, or improve the ones that are already there. Glenn Kamara is the shining example, someone we've been linked with. Rangers signed him for 50k. Under Stevie, came on in leaps and bounds and is now they're talking about 50, 20 million pound player. So it just goes to show that if you give him a lot of money, he's not just going to go and spend it erratically. He's still got a good eye for a bargain. And I think Digne is a really good example of that, obviously, because the player, the quality is one thing, but to pick him up for, a fee of about 23 million pounds or something like that, whether the reason happy or not, is an incredible bit of business. Because really, if you're signing him from a healthy and happy situation, I think he costs you 40, 50 million pounds.
Yeah, for sure. And I think interesting, that almost leads me on perfectly to an outgoing, which I think we'll talk about now, because that has essentially sent Matty Targett up north, up to Newcastle. And Aaron, I was really interested in your perspective on this, because I've seen a fair bit of chatter on Twitter from yourself about this. And I think it's something that it's a point that I raised in the last podcast. I think it's a difficult situation, because since Matty Targett has walked through the door, that left back position has been his. And it's understandable that he'd want first team football. But after only 2 games on the bench, kind of going, do you know what, this ain't for me. I'm a bit underwhelmed by that, Aaron, to be perfectly honest, mate. I've been very critical of him in his time at Villa, but there is some quality in there, mate. But and again, with something so well with like the sort of the mental aspect of the game and just mental well-being in general, I find it really strange that, and I guess I'm kind of disappointed seeing Tiggs go up north, really, mate. But I wondered your thoughts on that.
Share your views, mate. And I do have some strong opinions on the case. For me, Matty was always a confidence player. We knew that when he came. Dean put his arm around him and said, "You are my number one left back. You will always be my number one left back until the day I leave this club, if that's the case." And Matty got comfortable with that. He was the only option, really, for us at left back. There was no challenging competition for him. Courtney House, perhaps, but not an out-and-out left back. There was nothing there. There was no challenge. There was no competition. So Matty just got into the groove of playing left back and knowing that he would be on that team sheet come a Saturday afternoon. And I think that was a big problem. And I think what Stevie G's done by coming in is brought in quality with Lucas Digne, and Matty hasn't liked it. He hasn't liked that he's been pushed away from his spot and from his promised land, if you like. Lucas is a far better left back than Matty Targett. Yes, Matty Targett's put in some good performances for us, but for me, his best performances and his best recognition comes when we have nobody in Villa Park and there was nobody in the stadiums. And, that mindset of player capability with Matty, it wasn't there with crowds. He doesn't like noise. He doesn't like confrontation. He doesn't like boos. He just didn't like it. And you could see that he was uncomfortable. Most of this season, he's had a game or two where he's been half decent, but most of this season, he's looked awkward. He's looked lackluster. He's looked completely depleted. And Stevie would have picked up on that very quickly. And I'm sure that was a reflection of what was happening in training as well. And hence why Lucas has come in. And Lucas has come in as one of the best left backs in the country and put Matty out of his place. It's quite simple. You pay 27 million for a left back, chances are they're going to start. And, it was a lovely opportunity for us to bring in Lucas. And I just hoped, there was a part of me that just hoped that Matty would stick around, challenge himself, come out of his comfort zone, put himself under a bit of pressure, fight for a position and find that mental grit, but he just didn't have it. And whatever the case may be, I think it's very obvious that when Newcastle came calling, or when his agent said Newcastle want you, or when Stevie G said you can go out on loan if you want to. He went. There was no thought about it because he just wasn't prepared to fight for that spot anymore. And I personally don't want that at the club. I want players that want to fight. Look at Courtney House. He's not getting game time, really. Courtney's not getting game time. He comes in and replaces Konza or Mings when they're out and does a really good job, in my opinion. But he's not buggered off to West Ham in January because he's not getting game time. Signed a new deal because he loves the competition. He loves the battle. He loves the motivation. He loves being challenged by his teammates, you know, and Matty didn't have that. And for me, it's mental over physical every day. And Matty didn't have it, unfortunately. So, yeah, lovely lad. Did his bit for Villa, but quite happy to see him go. And if we can make a permanent move out of it, then good luck to him. And let's bring some cash in for him because we'll get more for him than we paid for him, no doubt.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the choice of destination, though, because I think in addition to Villa Park being a somewhat, you know, antsy environment when things aren't necessarily going our way, you magnify that by 1,000 and you get St James's Park. Like it doesn't really make much sense to me. I guess he will occupy that spot because, you know, it's just Javier Manquillo or Fraser who play in that wing back spot, which is
I strongly believe the Geordies will rip him to bits though, mate. And I don't know for his own well-being how that's going to go down because he isn't a fantastic left back. I don't care whether he's going there to play first team football or not. He isn't a brilliant left back. He does a job, but he's not phenomenal. And Newcastle want phenomenal based on their, you know, new environment, the new culture that they're creating there. And he isn't going to be that. And I do worry. I really do worry. And you don't want to get on the wrong side of the Geordies because they will rip you a new arsehole. Quite simple.
I mean, hopefully, if anything, if a permanent doesn't come back from it, it kind of hardens him a bit. I think it'd be interesting to see what comes of that because I did think it was a bit of a strange decision to let him go. I think, you know, rightfully so. There's been a lot of clamour for Ben Chrisen, who's a fantastic prospect. But judging by what Gerard's been saying in terms of wanting like 2 or 3 first team quality players in every single position, it didn't really make too much sense. But we'll move on to the next one. And again, Az, I'm going to stick with you, mate, because, you know, I know this is a position that you are familiar with. Robin Olsen. Now, we did an announcement on this, Dan. We were very underwhelmed, weren't we, mate? I think we could totally understand why the signing was being made. And maybe, you know, it was an unfair bar that had been set by Philippe. But what are your thoughts on this, Az, mate? Because obviously we've seen, I think Sinalso's gone out on loan. One of the young lads.
Philippe Marshall. So Philippe Marshall's gone to Gateshead, which I expected. I expected one of the two to go out on loan. You know, neither of them are going to get any first team football. Yes, it's great for them to spend some time with Neil Cutler and the big boys, Martinez, and learning their trade. But for the younger boys at this time in their career, I think getting out on loan is a great thing. Hardens them up, you know, faces reality a little bit and makes them men, if you like. But for me, Olsen presents just looking for a little bit of reassurance, I think, between the sticks. A little bit of an older head. You know, and Gerard did talk about this when he first came in. You know, the average age of our squad was far less than most and the others in the Premier League. And that is worrying. You know, I think Dean was always a big believer of young players. And that was the strategy. That was the recruitment process. Bring in young players and hopefully sell them on for big fees and hopefully make them better. But Stevie G's recognised that isn't all the best. Because you do need wise heads in that groove. You do need some more experienced older men to be around about. And, you know, I think Olsen presents that. He's also, you know, he's another opportunistic signing for me. He didn't cost a lot of money. You know, he's a number one for his country. He hasn't been playing game time at Sheffield, which is a strange thing to think about, that he's come from Sheffield to us. That's, you know, a huge step up, but he has. I would imagine there's some sort of Lang links with Olsen, Scandinavian links, to set up the networks out there. Probably said, you know, we can give you some game time if you come over to us and earn a nice pay packet for the next 6 months. Olsen will probably sign permanent, mate, I would imagine, come the end of the season. Seems silly that he doesn't. It brings me right back to Jed. And Jed for me is a lovely keeper. I like Jed. You know, he wouldn't be where we are without him. That's fair to say. You know, in the playoffs, he was our shining light. And, you know, I had a lot of love for Steer, but he isn't a Premier League goalkeeper. And there was no way that he was kicking Emmy off the front. And I don't think he's better than Olsen either, really, on his day. And so game time for him was needed. And ultimately, we're always going to have 3 keepers in the first team setup. And that's how Gerrard likes to work. That's how Neil Cutler likes to work. So, and you've got that now. You've got Olsen, Martinez, and you've got the young lad, Siswalio, whatever his name is, the Finnish lad. So yeah, I'm happy with Olsen, mate. It's not something to get too excited about, but he's an assured keeper. He's been around the blocks. He's played in several leagues across the world. Still number 1 for his country. You know, there's nothing to sweat about there, really. He's a good keeper, and he's a nice addition to the ranks. And he'll push Martinez, which Jed wasn't, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that is important, isn't it? And Dan, you know, we've seen Gerrard before quite, you know, heavily lean on 1 or 2 older heads in his squad. You know, you look at Jermaine Defoe, you look at McGregor as well. Two players who've played a lot of football for Rangers. Obviously, Defoe is now at Sunderland. But no, I think, you know, on all that, mate, it does make a lot more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure, mate. You only have to look at the way that he's looked at Ashley Young since, you know, he's been here. The early response that he had when, you know, he first walked into Ashley, he was probably the character that he warmed to most. I think it's completely fair to say that in several press conferences, you know, he was waxing lyrical about his professionalism, about their time together with England. And I think you need that in a squad. You think, and I think especially in a squad like Villa's, where ultimately for a fair proportion of Ashley Young's career, he's been competing at a level which we want to be. You know, he's been playing in the Champions League, he's been playing in the Europa League, he's been playing international football with England, he's been winning, you know, FA Cups, League Cups, competing at the level which Villa want to. And I think, you know, that's ultimately, you have to go and get these older heads to take the younger guys under their wing and say, look, okay, this is how you deal with this. This is how you cope with this. And I think that sort of mentality is important to create. I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head regarding target, and I think you only have to look at the big clubs in and around Europe to sort of show that this happens all the time in every big club up and down Europe. You know, you only have to look at, you know, if you take England is a perfect example. You know, Liverpool signed Ibrahima Kamate. You don't see Joel Matip going, well, that's it then, I'm going now. You ain't going to see me around. You know, it's exactly the same with, you know, they signed Thiago. You don't see Henderson packing his bags and going, like, it's like, you know, you all the time, clubs are looking to one up and add competition to their squad. And obviously they're coming in with big price tags and but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to start and play every game regardless of performance. There's been shown time and time again at these clubs that they can sign a player for a big fee. And at the end of the day, if you've got a player that wants to go, no, okay, this is my spot. I was actually listening to I think it was a Monday Night Football special with Jamie Carragher. He was saying that Liverpool did this to him loads of times. One time it was John Arnorisa and he fought and he got the spot. The next time Steve Finnan and he fought and he got the spot. And it's like, this happens. It happened to Gary Neville. It's happened, like, all these guys talk about it. And that's what keeps you at the top of their game. And that's ultimately, I think, a mentality thing between the guys that make the top level and the guys that are happy to play out, you know, and no disrespect to Newcastle, but in those sort of mid-tier clubs that realistically, obviously they're hoping for the top. They're not there yet. If you want to go and play for them, fine. But for where Villa want to be, I don't think you can have too many players like that.
There's levels. It's all about the mentality monsters. And one of them, a player who I don't think I can label with that just yet, the final addition in the window, Callum Chambers. Now, it looks, Villa played a friendly against Brentford the other day, beat them 2-1. It looks like Concert, Mings and Chambers all played, which to me suggests that Chambers was playing in that all coveted DM spot that we have been screaming for so long, mate. And as I know you're a big fan of Glenn Kamara, I'm really interested to see how this one plays out, because I think we all have a lot of expectations, don't we, on who we wanted, the profile of the player. And it's fair to say Callum Chambers hasn't lived up to any fans' hopes or dreams for that position. But I am really looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Yeah. Callum is a good player. You know, let's not beat around the bush here. Callum is an astute player. He's been around the block. He knows the leagues. And actually, some fans might not be aware, but had one of his best performing season on loan at Fulham, playing in a defensive midfield position. You know, he understands that role, equally understands centre back, equally understands right back. equally probably understands left back. And I think with Matty going out, Kane Kessler Hayden being given his marching orders again to go and get some more, tough man football down at MK Dons, he presents us with that cover that we really need, and that competition in places, 2 in every position that Gerrard keeps talking about. So he wasn't the DM that I think we all wanted. I don't think he's come in to play DM, and that's the only goal. I think he's come in to cover a number of positions. Didn't cost us a lot of money. He's got the right desire, got the right mindset. He's got the right determination to come in and learn and settle. He knows a lot of the boys anyway, understands the Premier League. So it made a lot of sense. One that I don't think any of us saw coming, but does make a lot of sense. No, the DM position, I really felt that we were going to do something with this January. My understanding was that we were very much confident that we were going to bring our defensive midfielder man in. And it didn't happen. And I don't know why that didn't happen, but there could be a number of reasons. And I think we need to just remain very chilled out about it. Disappointed, yes, because I think the expectation was there that we were going to do that business. Clearly, we looked like we were trying to do that business, but for whatever reason, didn't work out. But I think it's glaringly obvious that for maybe the last 4 or 5 transfer windows, the fans have seen that real need for an anchor man, and we haven't had it. Nakamba came to life in September, October time. Gerrard thought he found his man, and then he goes and blows himself off for the season, and we're left without a Nakamba again. So I think if Naka had stayed fit and he was okay, I don't think the conversation would have been as heightened. I don't think fans would have been as disappointed in January, because Naka seemed to be doing what Gerrard wanted him to do. But with him out, I just felt like we were going to do some business. Now, for me, that tells me the man we want is going to cost a lot of money, whether that's Basuma, whether in my heart, I feel that could be Calvin Phillips. But summertime comes, and I think you will see the arrival of an incredibly sensational defensive midfielder signing. There's probably 3 or 4 names in the hat.
I think,
but I think that's coming.
I really hope so. And I mean, Dan, I'll come back to you, Aaron, but does the lack of a true destroying ball-playing 6, does that taint this January transfer window? I think that's the discussion that I think people would like us to have before we wrap up this podcast. Does it taint it? Because in my eyes, the past three transfer windows, we've got better and better, and I find it hard to criticize.
You've got to be. That's the problem. That is the only problem that comes when you sign players like Coutinho and Digne. The fans would get a little, and they go, "All right, I like this," and they think, "Well, let's give us more. Let's give us more." And you get hungry, and you get used to signing players like this. And I think, in isolation, if someone had showed you this January window before it had all unfolded and said, "Would you take this?" I don't know a Villa fan that wouldn't have done. And you got to be careful not to be too greedy. I think ultimately you have to judge transfer windows nowadays, where there's so much that goes into a player, and they can either go badly, and we've had really bad transfer windows. We've had good transfer windows. If you come out the transfer window and objectively you are a much, much better team, having done the business that you've done, then it's a good window. Objectively, it's a good window. I think we can get by without the 6 until the end of the season. It's very difficult to go and, if we want to get a big player in that position, which we do, as we were saying, we've got to go and spend 50, 60 million pounds. And if you do that in January, 50, 60 becomes 70, 80, because clubs don't want to let players go. They're that key, that important to their season. They don't want to do it now. So it's like, I think we're better off doing it in the summer. And I think that is the final piece in the jigsaw. Then it's no excuses, because we've got players in every position. We've addressed every position. We're comfortable with every spot. If that is the final piece in the jigsaw, it seems, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're bang on, mate, with that point. The man that we wanted, or the few men that we wanted and really wanted to bring to the club, just wasn't attainable in January. And you can't blame the parent clubs for not allowing that to happen. You just can't blame them. It's not a good window to be losing your best players. And we only want the best players. Simple as that. We aren't going around looking for defensive midfielders sat on a bench somewhere else to come in and play defensive midfielder to be first name on the team sheet here. It's not going to happen. So, and we're in a different ball game now with transfers and recruitment. And come summer, I think we'll see we'll see some good stuff. And I think another thing, Dan, just to add to that, come summer, for me, Watkins and Ings really need to show their worth in the next 6 months. Really need to show their worth. And what I mean by worth, I don't mean Watkins' work rate. I don't mean his holding off. I don't mean any of that. I know the qualities he brings there, but he's got to start scoring goals. He's got to start scoring goals, because Gerrard loves a goal scorer. He really does. And currently Ings and Watkins aren't scoring goals. So as much as he loves them both in regards to the qualities they bring, I think one could depart and a big striker arrive if both of them can't show their worth between now and the summer. But I hope they do. I hope they do. I think both of them need at least 10 goals each and really make a mark and put their name on that top spot. They can't play together. So they've got to play well individually when they're both on the field. So I really hope we see that, because I want that for both of them. Good players.
I think people won't like it, but I think the one going is Ollie. But we'll end the podcast on that bombshell and let you guys discuss that in the comments. I think it's safe to say, lads, we're extremely happy with the business that has been done. And I think, if anything, as you lads have alluded to earlier on in this, it is exciting times. That is really exciting times. And finally, just before we go, I mean, I think all the loans, again, to me, signal really good business. Getting Cam out, getting Jaden out, massive. We spoke about Keenan on the last podcast. Absolutely love him here. He's come into life at Nottingham Forest, which is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, guys, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, make sure you let us know in the comments. Let us know who your favourite signing of the window was. If there's anyone that may surprise you, we'd love to know. And make sure you subscribe for more content. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.